The movie opens in 1982 at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While the other children are laughing and having fun, Charlotte Emily sits alone on the floor. Her friends come there and tell her the trap door needs time to settle and invite her back to the table to join the others. Charlotte says they don't want her there, but the girl reassures her, saying she just had bad luck and things will improve. When Charlotte insists she can only rely on that thing, the girl tells her that whatever is down there isn't her spirit guide and that it will still be there even if she steps away to have some cake first. Next, we see Charlotte sitting at a table when she suddenly notices someone in a yellow rabbit suit luring a young boy toward a back room. Alarmed, she rushes to a man and tells him the boy needs help, but he tells her to go tell her parents. Desperate, she asks another man, but he refuses as well. With no one willing to listen, Charlotte runs toward the back room herself when a girl tries to stop her, but Charlotte pushes past and goes inside. She hears whistling and follows it into the kitchen, where she finds the boy lying unconscious on the floor. Carefully, she reaches him while staying out of sight, only to realize the rabbit has vanished. She lifts the boy and tries to escape, but the rabbit is hiding nearby. He grabs a knife and chases her, and as Charlotte runs toward the exit, the figure closes in, step by step. She barely makes it outside, completely exhausted, while everyone around her remains unaware of the danger. In desperation, she screams, finally drawing attention, but then she collapses onto the trapdoor as the boy rushes to his mother, and it's revealed that Charlotte has knife wounds across her back. The trapdoor slowly opens, and Charlotte falls through it, but instead of disappearing, the marionette rises from below, cradling Charlotte in its arms. Everyone stands frozen, watching in horror as the scene abruptly cuts to black. 20 years later, Vanessa gets an early morning call from Mike, and she tells him that she had another rough night and can't escape the bad dreams. Mike asks if he can help, but she says she is fine and asks if Abby is off to school. He says she is still home and that Jeremiah is coming over to help paint. Before hanging up, Mike confirms their dinner plan later, and Vanessa agrees, saying it will be nice to get out for a while. Later, when Jeremiah arrives, he asks Mike about the date, and Mike brushes it off as just two adults having dinner. Jeremiah jokes that he hopes they're happy, but says Vanessa has crazy eyes, to which Mike quickly defends her. Jeremiah then mentions Mike's aunt, saying ever since she started talking about killer teddy bears, the town's gone crazy, to which Mike says he can't wait for the festival to be over, so things can go back to normal. Jeremiah adds that people are obsessed with the old pizzeria, and says he heard Mike's aunt was committed, and when he asks if Mike really thinks she made it all up, Mike says they should keep Abby's connection to her a secret as she's been through enough already, and doesn't need that kind of attention. Meanwhile, Abby excitedly tells her friends how Mike and Vanessa once saved her from animatronics. One of the kids calls her crazy, but another asks if she wants to sit with them at lunch, and she happily agrees. Later in class, Mr. Berg reminds everyone that their robotics presentation is scheduled for Saturday. He complains that some students have been distracted by the stupidity of Freddy Fest, and when a student says it's called Faz Fest, Berg snaps that he doesn't care what it's called, and calls it a mockery of real robotics. He warns that everyone must attend the science fair, competing or not, or they'll receive a failing grade. Berg then walks over to Abby and looks at her robot, reminding her that their school is defending a 3-year winning streak. She tells him she'll be ready, but he bluntly says he doesn't think she will be. He adds that robotics isn't for everyone, and that there's no shame in stepping aside for the good of the team. After he leaves, Daniel tells Abby that Berg is tough on everyone and not to let him get to her. He then says he's surprised she hasn't tried fixing her animatronic friends herself, adding that he bets she could. Later, when Abby gets home, Mike asks if she needs anything before he leaves for his date. She asks if she can see her friends, and when he assumes she means school friends, Abby clarifies she means Chica and the others. Mike reminds her they've talked about this. She can't go back there, because the animatronics are broken. He promises he'll fix them someday, but until then, she should try making real friends. Abby insists her friends are real and turns on the TV where a paranormal show called Spectral Scoopers begins. Mike apologizes, saying it's complicated and they'll talk later, then warns her not to watch too much of the show before leaving. Later, Mike asks Vanessa about her bad dreams, and she says they're always the same, but insists they don't need to talk about it. He reminds her how he used his own dreams to confront what happened with Garrett, admitting he probably slept too much back then, but it helped him, and he thinks it could help her too. Vanessa says she doesn't think that's a good idea, to which Mike tells her she'll never truly be free of her father until she deals with the mess he left in her head. He says he just wants them to be able to move on from all of it. Later, when Mike returns home, he finds a note from Abby saying that she's gone to fix her friends. Worried about his sister, Mike rushes to Freddy Fazbear's and finds Abby sitting alone on the floor. He approaches her and apologizes, admitting he didn't know how to tell her the truth. She asks where they are, and he says there are pieces of them scattered around. She says that's not what she meant and asks where her friends really are, to which Mike steps closer and admits he doesn't know, saying maybe they're in heaven, and asks, wouldn't she want that for them? Abby says she would, and he then apologizes for not telling her sooner, and tells her that they'll always be with her, right there in her heart. After a while, Abby finds a fast talker, a realistic voice interaction device, and Mike asks if that's what she wants, to which she excitedly says yes. Before leaving, Mike goes to pick up Abby's bike and notices a strange pamphlet tucked among the Faz Fest flyers on the wall. It reads Freddy's is murder, followed by the words want to know more, and a phone number beneath it. Meanwhile, paranormal investigators Lisa, Alex, and Rob are on their way to the Freddy's location, and when Alex asks how they even found the place, Lisa says the security guard, Mike, who works there. They then finally arrive at the place, and Rob mentions that he used to come to this place when he was a kid, but Lisa says he's thinking of one of the franchise locations. She says this one is original, and no one has been here for decades. Rob asks what happened here, and Lisa says a little girl was murdered there, but the whole incident was swept under the rug. Alex jokingly adds that her soul probably still wanders the building, when suddenly, he is startled by a security guard. Lisa steps forward and says he must be Mike, but he corrects her, saying it's actually Michael. He then brings them inside the outlet and welcomes them to Freddy's. Lisa asks if he is cool if they record everything, and he says, of course. They are excited to be here, and Michael tells them that this restaurant had a lot of unique features. When Lisa mentions the marionette, Michael is impressed and says it was truly one of a kind. Rob asks what it is, and Lisa explains that it emerged from a trapdoor to direct the other animatronics. Michael adds that it ran on advanced wireless technology, far ahead of its time, but they never built another one. He then shows them the animatronics, all neatly wrapped in plastic sheets, and Alex comments that they look brand new. Lisa asks about Foxy, to which Michael says Foxy was part of a failed take-apart and put back together attraction, and was never the same afterward, adding that kids can be cruel. Just then, Lisa hears something and asks if they can hear it too, saying it's like music, to which Michael warns them that this place has a way of playing tricks on the imagination if you let it. He then asks if they should keep going, but Lisa says she'll catch up with them, explaining that she wants to look around a little more. Meanwhile, Rob wanders into the river section as the lights above him begin to flicker. Sensing something is wrong, he pulls out his EMF detector and points it toward a bulb. The device suddenly goes haywire before the bulb explodes, sending him tumbling into the water below. Startled, he quickly scrambles back up, only to be horrified by a marionette doll. On the other hand, Lisa follows the sound of the music and discovers a music box. She picks it up, finds a switch, and turns it off. But just then, she hears a noise coming from a large gift box in front of her, as if something inside is moving. The box slowly creaks open, and when Lisa looks up, she gets startled to see Marionette staring at her. She lets out a scream as it suddenly lunges forward, and when Alex notices Michael eerily smiling, he asks what he did, but Michael just stares back. Alex tells Lisa he is coming and asks where she is, but an animatronic grabs him, and Michael watches coldly as it kills Alex, and pieces of his body fall to the floor below. On the other hand, Rob hears a noise and turns around, only to see a doll falling in the river. As he looks closer, he sees the dolls beneath the surface, and before he can react, they suddenly grab him, dragging him underwater and killing him. Michael cautiously enters a room and finds Lisa lying on the floor, her body violently convulsing. But after a while, she suddenly goes still. She then slowly lifts her head, and it becomes clear that she's been possessed. Terrified, Michael stumbles backward, and when she suddenly lunges at him, he turns and runs for his life. She leaps toward him, but he barely manages to escape the building. As he turns around, he hears a scream echo from inside and coldly says, "Welcome back, Charlotte." The next day, Mike overhears Abby using the fast talker, trying to reach her friends. She says she needs them and misses them more than anything. Meanwhile, Vanessa is at the gym when she suddenly sees Yellow Rabbit's reflection. But when she turns around, it is gone. Panic sets in as she begins pedaling the spin bike faster and faster. And catching a brief glimpse of her father, she instinctively shuts her eyes in fear. After a while, when she finally opens them, he's nowhere to be seen, until he suddenly lunges at her, forcing her to flee in terror. That night, in her sleep, Vanessa confronts her father, telling him she's no longer afraid of him, and that she no longer needs him. She insists she's nothing like him, but at that moment, the doors begin to open, and her father steps forward. She tries to escape, only to realize the door is locked. Her father descends the stairs, and as she turns, he tells her he isn't finished with her. She says he can't keep her there, and that she's leaving, but he responds, asking if she doesn't know how much he loves and cares for her. Terrified, she turns to run, only to find him standing directly in her path. He pulls out a knife, and she bolts upstairs as he calls after her, saying she is his child and that she has a purpose. Vanessa runs into a room and locks the door behind her. Moments later, her father enters the room, searching for her, asking where she thinks she can run. Suddenly, Vanessa stumbles into an animatronic, and before she can react, its eyes light up. As she steps back, her father grabs her and says, "You'll always be mine." She struggles free and runs, only to find herself in a police uniform. She moves forward and shoots her father, who falls from that floor, crashing to the floor below. And as Vanessa looks down at him, he stares back and whispers, "You will always be mine." And Vanessa suddenly jolts awake. Meanwhile, Chica contacts Abby through Fast Talker and begs her to help them. Abby asks where it is, and the voice replies, "Come find me." When she asks how, it simply says, "I'll show you the way." Chica leads Abby to the original Freddy's, where Abby begins calling out for her friends. After a moment, Chica's eyes light up as it steps out of the darkness. Abby runs to her and hugs her tightly, saying how much she missed her. Chica tells her she missed her too. Abby asks how she got a new body, and when Chica asks if she likes it, Abby says it's nice, but different, and kind of cold. She then asks what kind of help they need, and Chica replies that they do need help. But what matters most right now is that they're together again. The next morning, Vanessa visits Mike's house and hears strange noises coming from Abby's room. She goes to check and finds the Fast Talker on her bed. Curious, she steps closer to examine it, when Abby suddenly jumps out and startles her. She asks if she's never played hide and seek before, saying the first rule is always to check behind the doors. Vanessa asks where Mike is, and Abby says he's getting breakfast. She then excitedly shows Vanessa her robot, and when Vanessa asks if she built it, Abby says that Chica helped her. She adds that Freddy tried too, but his fingers were too big. Vanessa asks if she said Freddy and Chica helped her, and Abby explains that it happened at their old house last night. She says it even has a play area for little kids and a river. Just then, Mike comes back with breakfast, and Abby excitedly shows him her drawings, and he tells her they're really cool. Moments later, Vanessa steps out and says she needs to talk to him. Mike shows Vanessa the flyer, and when she says she doesn't understand it, he admits he didn't either until he called the number. Vanessa brings up Abby, saying she claimed she was with Freddy and Chica, and when Mike brushes it off as the Fast Talker, Vanessa insists Abby said she truly saw them. Mike admits he's been trying to move on, but says it's impossible when everything keeps coming back, especially with Abby still hurting and missing her friends, and there is nothing he can do to fix it, just like he couldn't save Garrett or Charlotte. Vanessa asks how he knows about her, and Mike explains that her father made the flyer and told him about his daughter and her best friend, Vanessa. He asks why she never mentioned the other victims, and Vanessa coldly says her father was a monster. Mike says he's only trying to fix things for Abby and for her, but Vanessa stops him, telling him she can handle herself and that his only job is to protect Abby. Later, Vanessa visits Freddy's and notices the music box has stopped. She steps inside and peers into the gift box, unaware Charlotte is watching from above, but she slips back when Vanessa looks up. Vanessa calls out her name, saying it's just her, and when Charlotte asks if she's there to put her back to sleep, Vanessa says she knows she wants to escape and hurt others just like they hurt her, but she can't allow that. Charlotte replies that she's already out of the box, yet still trapped, and Vanessa explains the perimeter lock keeps all the animatronics contained. Charlotte says Vanessa could change that, but when Vanessa refuses, Charlotte calmly says she has another friend who can help. She tells Vanessa she doesn't hate her, but she needs to stay out of her way. Just then, Charlotte lunges at her, and the scene cuts here. Meanwhile, at the science fair, When Abby asks Berg where her booth is, he says he thought she wasn't participating and that it's too late to set up, but she insists she can place her project next to Daniel's. Brett claims he doesn't want her to be embarrassed, but Abby says she's proud of her work. Pretending to agree, Brett says he'll find the perfect spot, then deliberately drops the project, breaking it, but he tells her he'll still give her credit and suggests she go home while he throws it away. Upset, Abby returns to Freddy's, where Chica asks what's wrong, and Abby tells her that Berg destroyed her science project. Chica offers to be her new project, and Abby excitedly agrees, but Chica stops her, saying she needs Abby to do something first. Chica leads Abby to a room and tells her there's a secret code that will let her come along, asking Abby will she enter it for it? Abby agrees and sits at the computer, while Charlotte forces Vanessa to watch on a screen, threatening to kill Abby unless Vanessa disables the perimeter lock. Vanessa pleads with her, saying she understands her anger, but Abby isn't to blame. Abby asks, what does she type? And Charlotte asks Vanessa, is she willing to take that chance? Vanessa tries to warn Abby, but Charlotte tightens her grip, forcing Vanessa to give up the code. Chica repeats the code to Abby and tells her to press enter. When she does, Freddy and Bonnie come there, and something strange begins to happen to all the animatronics. Moments later, the perimeter unlocks, and Chica excitedly tells Abby that she did it. They're free. Freddy moves forward, and Chica urges them to hurry if they want to make it to the science fair on time. Meanwhile, Mike visits Charlotte's father, Henry, who explains that he once became so obsessed with his work that it cost him everything, including his daughter. He tells Mike that although Charlotte's death was ruled an accident, he always suspected otherwise. And years later, when 5 more children went missing, he realized she had been murdered by William Afton. Henry assumes Mike has lost someone too, and Mike admits it was his younger brother. Henry offers his condolences, saying that ambition can blind even well-meaning people to the evil standing right beside them. He explains that this is why Fest disturbs him so deeply. Seeing people celebrate that place feels wrong. That's why he created the flyers, because people deserve to know the truth. Mike then points to a picture and asks what it is, to which Henry explains that it's the river ride, one of Charlotte's favorite attractions. Mike says he's been to Freddy's, and there was no river ride there, and Henry tells him it only existed at the original location. Mike calls Abby's school and learns that there was an incident, and that Abby has already left. Mike rushes back to Henry and tells him he thinks Abby is at the original Freddy's. As he turns to leave, Henry stops him and gives him a small music box, the one he made for Charlotte to help her sleep. He admits it might sound crazy, but asks Mike if he goes back there, would he leave it for her? Mike reaches Freddy's and finds the main entrance locked. He climbs in through a window, grabs a flashlight, and begins searching for Abby. But as he moves through the darkness, he doesn't notice Lisa's body lying nearby. Meanwhile, at the science fair, Abby arrives with Chica and proudly tells Mr. Berg that this is her new project. Chica politely says she's heard a lot about him. Berg asks Abby if this is some kind of joke, putting someone in a suit and calling it her own work. He says she's an embarrassment to her class and the school, and orders her to take it and leave before she costs them the title. Abby apologizes to Chica, but Chica tells her there's nothing to be sorry about. She then asks if she should go talk to him. Abby asks what she's going to say, and Chica replies that she just wants to see what's going on inside his head. Later, as Berg prepares to leave for the night, he hears a noise coming from one of the classrooms. Curious, he peers inside, when suddenly Chica appears, grabs him, and pulls him inside. Terrified, Berg tries to run as Chica follows, its heavy footsteps echoing through the room. He hides in the shadows, but Chica calmly says, "I would like to talk about Abby's project." Its eyes suddenly light up, scanning the room until they lock onto him. It grabs his leg and drags him out as he screams, begging and promising to give Abby an A, offering test answers, anything to save himself. But Chica lifts him into the air by his head and coldly says, "I only want to see what's going on inside your head." It begins crushing his skull as he screams in agony until his body finally dies. Chica then lets him fall and quietly says, "Just as I thought, nothing in there at all." Meanwhile, Mike continues searching for Abby when he hears banging coming from inside a locker. He opens it, and Vanessa falls out. Shocked, he asks if she's okay and quickly unties her hands. He asks what's going on and where Abby is, to which Vanessa says she left with the animatronics. Mike tells her he just saw them in a back room, but Vanessa explains that those were only prototypes used for spare parts, and Charlotte is behind everything. As they make their way toward the security office through the river area, Vanessa explains that Charlotte's spirit is inside the marionette. She says that after Charlotte was killed, she would sometimes still see her there, trapped in rage, the last emotion she felt before she died, and the only thing that ever kept her calm was the music box. Vanessa admits she used it to keep Charlotte asleep, but something or someone broke it. Mike tells her that Henry just gave him a music box, but only then do they hear a noise coming from the river. Suddenly, he slips and falls into the water, and to their horror, an animatronic begins moving toward him. Vanessa shouts for him to grab her hand, and just as the robot reaches him, she pulls him out. She leads him to the security office, and when Mike asks what they're doing there, she tells him she's trying to access the tracker system. She explains that Abby thinks the animatronics are her friends, but they're being controlled wirelessly by the marionette, by Charlotte. Mike asks what Charlotte wants, and Vanessa says my father killed her, but Charlotte blames all the parents. When Mike asks what she wants with Abby, Vanessa explains that the marionette seems to need someone to bond with in order to move freely, and she's afraid Abby might be the next target. Mike points out that there are 4 animatronics, and they don't even know which one Abby is with, to which Vanessa tells him they're all active now, because the perimeter locks were disabled. Normally, the system drains their power once they leave the building, but that safeguard is gone. Still, if she can get the trackers online, they might be able to locate them. Mike asks if the marionette controls them wirelessly, and when she says yes, he tells her to leave immediately, go into town, find Charlotte, and stall her for as long as possible while he tries to cut the signal from here. Meanwhile, Freddy roams freely outside, and the kids around him are amazed, assuming he's just someone in a costume. One boy excitedly tells him they're heading to the costume contest and asks if he wants to come along, to which Freddy replies, I do, but first, I have to go pull the heads off some very bad people. At the science fair, Abby wins the contest, and as the room erupts in applause, Chica quietly scans the crowd. Meanwhile, as Mike tries to stop the signal, Chica gets a security breach warning, and it immediately begins activating the prototypes. Mike finally accesses the tracker, and a signal flashes onto the screen. He connects to Vanessa and tells her he's found the first tracker, telling her Freddy's location. Meanwhile, Freddy is seen standing outside a house, and unaware of his presence. The homeowner presses the garage door switch, but Freddy stops it before it can fully close. Back at Freddy's, Mike hears some noise and quickly switches on his flashlight, scanning outside. He mutters, "How is there no door?" And as he scans the room, he notices a mask lying on a chair. Uneasy, he sits back down and continues working. Meanwhile, a child looks out her window and sees an animatronic is standing outside. Vanessa calls out to Mike, asking if he's okay, but there's no response. And just then, an animatronic slams down onto the windshield. Panicked, she swerves the steering wheel, trying to shake it off, but the robot smashes through the glass. The impact sends the car spinning out of control, and it veers off the road before finally coming to a stop. Vanessa slowly lifts her head and looks around, and before she can react, the animatronic smashes through the window, grabbing her and trying to drag her out of the car. She struggles and manages to break free, scrambling into the passenger seat. The robot looms over her, then crashes through the other window, and reaches for her again. But she fights it off once more, dives back into the driver's seat, and desperately twists the key. The engine sputters, then finally roars to life, and without looking back, she slams the car into reverse and speeds away. Meanwhile, a woman gets terrified seeing Freddy standing inside her house, and when her husband rushes in to see what's wrong, he hurls his sandwich straight at Freddy in panic. Furious, it growls, "You left me to die," and when the man asks what they did wrong, it says, "All of you did," before slowly advancing toward them. But just then, tires screech outside. Vanessa slams on the brakes, and the sudden impact sends the animatronic flying straight into Freddy. Meanwhile, Mike is focused on the computer when the prototype suddenly reaches for him. He quickly grabs the mask and puts it on, and when the animatronic scans him, it identifies him as an animatronic, so it turns away, leaving him unharmed. On the other hand, Bonnie asks Debbie if they can be friends, and Debbie happily agrees. Her mother tells her to stop talking to her toys and go to bed, to which Bonnie says, "I'm going to see if your mom will let you stay up late." Back at Freddy's, a robot suddenly appears in front of Mike, and a piercing noise blasts from a speaker. Then, A blinding light flashes from its eyes, to which Mike lunges forward and rips off its head before shoving it out of the room. But more prototypes are standing outside. Just then, another robot crawls out of the vent. The other prototypes begin moving toward him as well, but Mike quickly slams the vent shut and rushes back to the computer, desperately trying to shut the prototypes down. Meanwhile, Bonnie lunges at Debbie's mother, trying to kill her, but Debbie throws herself between them, begging Bonnie to stop. Back at Freddy's, Mike finally finds the wireless system settings, but just as he's about to shut them down, Chica suddenly attacks. He reacts fast, grabbing the mask and slipping it on, and when Chica scans him, she mistakes him for an animatronic and walks away. But as Mike turns toward Foxy, he realizes the mask no longer works. He throws it aside and rushes back to the computer, determined to shut the signals off before it's too late. Bonnie tells Debbie that her mother doesn't care about her, that she only thinks about herself. It says all parents are the same, and I have to punish them for that. At the same moment, Foxy lunges at Mike, but Mike manages to shut down the signal, and instantly, their movements stop as the power cuts out. Vanessa contacts Mike, and he tells her that the animatronics have been deactivated, but only then does he notices a tracker still moving. He tells Vanessa there's one more signal, and when she asks where it is, he tells her it's at his house. Vanessa says it's the marionette, and Mike immediately tells her he's heading there right now. Meanwhile, Chica gently lays Abby down on her bed, and for a moment, everything seems calm until something goes wrong. Chica begins to glitch, and its suit begins to crack, splitting open to reveal the marionette inside. As it lunges toward Abby, the signal suddenly reroutes, reactivating the animatronics. Mike is on his way home when Vanessa radios him, telling him the animatronics are powering back on, saying they're outmatched and they're going to need more help. Mike rushes back into Freddy's, says, I don't know if you can hear me or if any of you are still here, but Abby needs you. And if you ever cared about her, even a little, then you have to help her right now. Meanwhile, Vanessa's car breaks down, but luckily, Jeremiah happens to pass by, and seeing him, she lets out a breath of relief. He drops her off at Mike's house and asks what's going on, but Vanessa doesn't answer. She cautiously steps into the house when a robotic voice calls out her name. Following the sound, she enters a room and realizes it's coming from the Faz talker. She asks if it's Charlotte, but the voice replies, it's Abby, revealing that Abby has been possessed. Terrified, Vanessa flees and hides in another room, while Charlotte follows her, saying the adults in her life betrayed her too, and don't deserve protection, insisting that Vanessa doesn't have to die for them and can help instead. Then she adds, you really thought I'd forget the first rule of hide and seek? Always check behind the door. She reaches for the door and peeks behind it, but Vanessa is not there. Vanessa then runs out of the room from behind, only to lose her footing and crash to the floor. Charlotte grabs Vanessa by the neck and coldly says, she always wondered what really goes on inside her head. Just then, Mike arrives with the music box, and the soft melody makes Charlotte release Vanessa, cover her ears, and let out a piercing scream before finally tearing herself away from Abby's body and leaving there. They help Abby back to her feet, but as they try to leave, Bonnie suddenly steps into their path. They turn around to leave, but another animatronic crashes through a nearby window, trapping them in. Just as panic sets in, Michael appears, revealing that he is Vanessa's brother. Mike asks, what's going on? And Michael calmly replies that she never told him about him, saying she was always selective with the truth. He introduces himself with a chilling smile, saying he's pleased to finally meet them. Vanessa asks him to stop, insisting they've done nothing wrong, but Michael coldly replies that their father would strongly disagree. When Mike says their father is dead, Michael answers that he's here to continue his legacy, just in time for Faz Fest. Mike realizes it was him, and Michael admits that while your aunt rekindled interest in Freddy's, he was the one who added fuel to the fire, calling it the perfect cover where everything, and everyone, would blend right in. He adds that by morning, half the town will be dead, to which Vanessa says this isn't a game, telling him he still has a chance to live a normal life. But he asks if she really thought she could trade them in and start over with something better. He reminds her that she's his child, that she has a purpose. He tells her to come home, but she says she already is, and then steps beside Mike and Abby. Michael coldly says it doesn't matter to him and orders the animatronics to break their bones and crush them. Panic erupts as the machines begin closing in, but suddenly, an animatronic drags Bonnie through the window, and it's revealed they're Abby's old friends. In a brutal instant, Foxy slams its foot down, crushing Bonnie's head. At the same time, the new Freddy rips the old Freddy apart, hurling the broken pieces across the room, and then Bonnie tears into Mangle, ripping its body to shreds and flinging the remains aside. Chica steps forward and tells Abby that she's been a very bad girl, but before it can do anything, new Chica appears behind it, grabs its head, and violently rips it off, sending the lifeless body crashing to the floor. Seeing this, Michael tries to run, but Jeremiah hits him and knocks him to the ground. Meanwhile, Chica collapses to the ground, and when Abby rushes to its side, asking what's happening to them, Vanessa gently explains that they were never meant to leave Freddy's. Abby asks if they're dying, and a boy's spirit softly answers, they're just moving on because they can't stay in those bodies anymore. Vanessa asks if they're going to heaven, and the spirit says they'll meet again someday, just not too soon. Then he turns to Mike and warns him that once they're gone, he won't be able to hold him back anymore. One day, he'll return, stronger than before. Mike asks, who? But the spirit vanishes without another word. Jeremiah rushes into the house, asking if everyone's okay, to which Mike says yes, and tells Abby that they need to leave now. As Vanessa steps forward to go with them, Mike stops her and tells her to stay away from them, saying he can't trust her anymore. After they leave, Vanessa stands alone in the doorway, tears welling in her eyes, until, without warning, the marionette lunges from the shadows behind her and possesses her, and the screen cuts to black. In the post-credits scene, 3 guys are seen looting Freddy's, and they find the yellow rabbit robot. They cover it and walk out, and as the room falls silent, one of its eyes flickers to life, signaling the awakening of Afton's spirit inside the Springtrap costume. The film ends with a voice message from Henry warning Mike. He says he wishes they'd had more time after discussing Charlotte, but he's sending the message in case he can't deliver it himself. Henry reveals he was once Afton's business partner, and that, despite his old equipment, he can still track some of the animatronics. He urgently tells Mike to get out as fast as he can, because the marionette is coming for him, and the tape cuts off abruptly.